we speak about the Bikurim, the mitzvah Bikurim, the first of the fruits. It's referred to as Reishis Pri Adama, the first of the fruits of the land. So every parsha, Rabbi Bachya has an introduction citing a posuk in Nishlei, introducing the parsha. In Parshas, at this particular portion of Kisovo, he speaks about the concept of Reishis, the first. So if you look at the posuk as it details all the aspects of Bikurim, it says you take the Bikurim, which is the first, and you bring it, and you take it on behalf of Hashem, who's the Reishis. Hashem is Reishis Kol. God is the first of all existence. And you bring it to the location, which is the choicest location, which is Reishis. And you give it to the Kohen. The Kohen was chosen to be the efficiency of Hashem, who's Reishis. So he says, Rabbi Bachya, you take the Reishis for the Reishis to the location, which is Reishis, to be given to the Reishis. Those are Rabbi Bachya's words. So we find this a commonality here. Hashem is the ultimate in the first. Hashem's profile, although God has no form, but one thing he is, he's the first. As we say, Ato Rishon, Ato Achron. You're the first and you're the last. Nothing exists outside of God. He's referred to as Reishis Kol. And you take that which has the same profile as Hashem, which is Bikurim, the Reishis, the first, and you bring it on his behalf to the most chosen location, which is the Beis HaMikdash, which is the temple, and you give it to the Kohen. The Kohen was chosen to be the efficiency of Hashem. Now, before the Chet Egel, before the sin of the Egel, who was meant to be the officiant? The Bechor. The Bechor, the first issue of the womb of its mother, was meant to be the officiant, the Kohen. But because Klal Yisrael became tainted as a result of the Chet Egel, of the idolatry at Sinai, all the Bechorim, the firstborn, were disqualified. They no longer were able to function in that capacity, although in their essence they're Reishis, because factually, the first child that is born is the first of the womb, the first issue of the womb. So therefore, the Bechor would have been the ultimate choice to be the Kohen. But because the Bechor became disqualified through Avodah Zorah, the Chet Egel, the Kohen, because Levi was the only Shevet, the only tribe that did not participate in the Chet Egel, therefore they were chosen, and the ultimate, the choice of the choice, was Aaron. Aaron and his children, they were chosen to be the Kohanim. So they are the ultimate Reishis. So why does the Kohen officiate? In terms of the most appropriate officiant, it should have been the Bechor, because he represents Hashem's profile in terms of Reishis more than anyone else. He became disqualified, so the Kohen is next best to be Reishis. This is the understanding. Now, Challah is given to the Kohen. Challah is tithing of the dough. What is Challah referred to as? Reishis Arosisechem. It's the first of the what? Of your batter. The first of the batter is given to the Kohen. Again, because Truma is the first of the tithing. The Challah is the tithing of the dough, the first. Now, we read at the beginning of the Torah alludes, what is the objective of creation? Bereshis bar Elokim, Eisa Shemayim v'Soretz. So Chazal, Rashi cites Chazal, Bishvil Yisrael Shnikru Reishis. The world was created for the Jewish people who are called Reishis, because among all the nations, we are the chosen, and Bishvil Torah Shnikus Reishis. And Torah is Reishis. So why does Klal Yisrael have relevance to Torah? Because we are Reishis. The Gemara tells us that Akum Shalom Torah Chayv Miso. that a non-Jew is not permitted to study Torah. He's only permitted to study the laws which apply to him, which are the 7 Noahide laws. But to study Torah, it's considered the equivalent of committing adultery. Why? Because the Torah says, what is the Torah? Torah tziva lo Moshe morosha kilas Yaakov. It is the heritage of the kilas Yaakov. Al tikra morosha ela morosa. It's the arusa of Klal Yisrael. So who has relevance to the Torah, which is rachis? Only the person who's rachis. Because we have that commonality. The nations of the world which are not classified as rachis, they have no relevance to this. What is the halacha if a non-Kohen officiates in the Beis HaMikdash? He's liable for what? For koris, spiritual excision. Why? Because he has no relevance to this. As the non-Kohen has no relevance to officiate in the Beis HaMikdash or the Mishkan, identically, the non-Jew has no relevance to the Torah because he doesn't have that profile, the characteristic of rachis for that reason. A non-Kohen who eats truma, he's liable for spiritual excision. Because what is truma? It's the first. You have no relevance to the first, therefore it has that very serious consequence, which is koris. That's the reason. So again, this is the concept. Now, when a Kohen duchens, we have Birchas Kohanim on Yom Tif, the Kohen has to have his hands ritualized before he goes for Birchas Kohanim. Now, who ritualizes the hands of the Kohen? The Levi. Because the Levi is part of that tribe who are not involved in idolatry. What is the halacha if there is no Levi? Who ritualizes the hands of the Kohen? The Bechor. The Bechor ritualizes his hands. Why? Because again, the Kohen being the rachis, so who is rachis in his essence? The Bechor. He's the first, he's the issue of the womb. Therefore he ritual. What happens if there's no Bechor? Then the halacha is the Kohen ritualizes his own hands. It's not an ordinary Jew does it. So to have relevance to that service of Birchas Kohanim, you minimally have to have that characteristic of rachis. So now, the Torah itself is called rachis. It's the chosen, it's the ultimate. So we're saying whoever has greater relevance to rachis has greater relevance to that rachis. So let's say you have a Kohen and he studies Torah in terms of what we call siyata d'shmaya. Siyata d'shmaya. Who should be the one to what? To have greater relevance to the Torah itself? Seemingly the Kohen. Because if the Torah in its essence is rachis, because it's rachis chochma yiras Hashem. Right? Rachis chochma is yiras Hashem. The first of the prerequisite to Torah is yiras Hashem. So that is the ultimate. Because what is yiras Hashem? That's directly engaging with the rachis. That's rachis chochma. The reason why that is rachis of the chochma, because that's directly revering Hashem himself. Then we talk about what follows. That's the Torah itself, which is chochmas Hashem, which is also classified as rachis. Once had mentioned, the halacha is that the grain or produce of Eretz Yisrael has to be tithed. If one does not tithe the produce of Eretz Yisrael, what is the liability? The liability is koris. Now the question is why? So there's a famous Rashi that explains, it's in Rashi and Yevomis, why is one liable for koris? Because intermingled in the untithed produce or grain is truma. So if one eats truma, one is liable for koris. So Tosas asks on Rashi, so why, if a Kohen eats hevel, why is he liable? If he's permitted to eat truma, and the basis for the liability of eating untithed grain is koris because the truma is contained within it, so the Kohen shouldn't have any liability when he eats tevel, untithed produce, untithed grain. That's Tosas' question in Yevomis. And therefore he disagrees. So, but with what we're saying is, this is the understanding. What gives the Kohen relevance to Truma? Not because it's Truma, because it's rachis. When does the Kohen have a claim, a right to Truma? Once it assumes the profile of rachis. When does it become the rachis? The first, It's the first tithing. So once it's tithed, then the Torah says, now you're welcome to partake of it. But until it's tithed, before it assumed that characteristic, the profile of Rashis, he has no relevance to what? To that itself.